When you are finished, please hang up.
The first post Purim Shir, which has special significance, because I think we're still riding on the unbelievable schusim that Klal Yisrael has on Purim. You know, there's a sefer called Yisod V'Shorish U'Avoda, which was written by Rabbi Eliezer Ziskind of Herdona. He lived in the 1800s. And the whole sefer is just full of love for davening and for learning. Thank you so much. And he had such an attraction to davening and learning that once there was someone that was found on the road in the snow, and he was freezing to death, and they dragged him into the Beis HaMedrash. Thank you. As they dragged him into the Beis HaMedrash, so they were desperately trying to revive him. They put him next to the oven, they were trying to warm him up, they were rubbing his body with schnapps, and he stood there in desperation, and he came running with a siddur, and he said, "Tell him to say Nishmas." He just couldn't understand how if a person says Nishmas, whole body doesn't warm up, and he meant it seriously. In any event, he was very makbid on davening with a minyan. On him, they say the story by the son of the Graf Katutsky, Avram ben Avram, that when he was killed, that he snuck in to say Amen on the bracha of Kiddush Hashem. In any event, he was always very makbid to daven with a minyan. And once he wasn't well, and he's going off to the shul to daven. So his wife said, "We'll bring a minyan to the house." He says, "I want to tell you something." He says, "How come last week you wanted your kugel pot before you baked your kugel, or your cholent pot before you baked your cholent? Why couldn't you just take one of the new pots that we have?" So she said to him, "Listen, leave the cholent to me, and you'd leave the davening to you. I know how to make cholent. Tell me why you wanted the old cholent pot." So she explained that the old cholent pot has in it a lot of the schmaltz that's still there. And it's not like, you bake the cholent there, it has a certain thing to it, a certain pizzazz to it that you don't have with the brand new pot. So he said, "That's why I want to go to shul to daven." So as you go to shul to daven, there's just so much schmaltz in the walls that it's just a different kind of davening. I think after having experienced what goes on in Klal Yisrael, before yeshiva here on Purim, the amount of tzedakah that went out, the amount of emotions, of brachas one to another, that it has to be that there is just so much schmaltz in these walls that it's a good time now to continue davening, continue learning. They say there's my father used to share this with me, that the Kedushas Levi once came to one of his rebbes, and he went in to taste the cholent before Shabbos to make sure that it's okay. And he wasn't 100% happy. So when no one was looking, because he didn't want to insult anyone, he took this whole thing of schmaltz, this thing of fat or oil, and he poured it in, a little worried about cholesterol after Shabbos. There was no trans fat in those days, so at least that wasn't a problem. And everyone's eating the cholent. The Rebbe had a spik kavanas before the cholent when he made the bracha, and everyone is saying that this cholent tastes unbelievable. So the Chassidim, being Chassidim, started saying it must have been the Rebbe's machshavos, must have been the Rebbe's Torah, must have been the Rebbe's Dibur. And the Kedushas Levi said, "No, it was my maisim toivim," he said. It was my good deeds that did it. There's a certain metzias in the act of giving tzedakah. You mentioned this story last year. It was when we had the snowstorm. Remember there used to be winters with snow many, many years ago, like last year? And I walked into shul, and this guy comes over to me and says, "You're davening in your rubbers?" I looked at him like, I said, at your age, it was easy to take the rubbers off and on. I don't have to tell you, but at my age, I got to sit down. I used to be able to do it standing up. You got to sit down. I get the rubber off, it comes off together with the shoe, sometimes even with my sock, and that's pretty embarrassing. And, then to get it back on afterwards, I never find it. It's always lost. You don't daven with rubbers. So I wanted to tell him, don't tell me how to daven. And I started saying Ashrei, and I said, no, maybe, what is it? Doesn't pass. So I sat down, and let me tell you, it was not easy to get my rubbers off and to put them away to the side. And to put them away. And I davened Shemon Esrei, and my mind was wandering during Shemon Esrei. And as I finished Shemon Esrei, and I managed to get the rubbers back on, at least the one that I found, so I began to think afterwards. I said, one day they're going to look at this Shemon Esrei in Shemayim, and they're going to say, "That was a Shemon Esrei." Wow, your mind is wandering all over the place. As we've said many times, the Vart from the Salem Rav. says, Eilu b'rechev, Eilu b'susim. He said, many people, they want to go on vacation, they need rechev and susim, they need chariots and horses. V'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu naskir. We just start davening, and our mind is on the other side of the world. Hey, Makarav and Afalu, they get into accidents, they could fall. V'anachnu kamnu v'anisayta. And we're standing in one place, so we're relatively physically safe in the travels of Shmon Esrei. And then he added, Hashem Hoshia Melech Eneinu V'yam Kareinu. You try. So I think in my Shmon Esrei, I'm all over the place. But no one can take away from me the schwitzing and getting those rubbers off before Shmon Esrei. And that you can't take away from me. You can take away the Shmon Esrei. In life, very often, it's the mitzias, it's the tzedakah, it's the time you spend with someone you're not in the mood of spending. That's a mitzias. And a mitzias you can't take away from someone. The davening, your Torah, your tefillah, that depends on what level it is. There's Torah l'shma, there's Torah shalai l'shma, there's almanas l'kanter, there's Torah for this to be sincere, there's Torah when you're not sincere, there's Torah with the intent to show you're greater than someone else. It's measured at different levels. But tzedakah is a mitzias. Tzedakah is reality. My father was just to share with me the story. Somebody once came to the Balatanya and he cried. He said, I have a big tzedakah house, big achnasas archim house. He says, you have such a tremendous chus. He says, I know, I don't mean it l'shem shemayim. He said, Rebbe, meines l'sheretz, I don't mean it seriously. The Rebbe said, no problem. What? The Balatanya, every word is measured of tefillah and Torah has to be l'shma. He said, when it comes to eating, the good thing is, you may not mean it seriously of a dimension of us Essen Ernst, he said, but the people that eat seriously. In other words, the tzedakah is a mitzias. The person that's eating, it's conveyed to him. So this past Matzah Shabbos, I am going with a friend of mine to give a speech someplace, wherever it was. And they insisted that I should not take my car. Because they wanted to make sure I get there. I took that as a little bit of a, all right, never mind. So I went with someone else who has a new, nice leased car. On the way back, a little bit before the Lincoln Tunnel, he tells me that he thinks the needle is going down, like where it says electricity, it's going down to the red. I said, nah, my car goes back and forth and back and forth. I said, my gas thing is on full, which always just feels very good when you drive. I don't worry about the $5 a gallon. Anyway, I just fill up and I remember. So he's saying, no, it's going down, it's going down. I said, it's nothing. And the car gets charging as it's driving. I'm the big mechanic, I know that. He says, I feel I'm losing power. You're not losing power, it's your imagination. So maybe we should pull off. Nah, go, it'll be okay. I says, I think that the lights are getting dimmer. I said, no. Said it's getting brighter on the outside. See, the problem when you use lumbus, sometimes. Somebody once said that he came to his chavrusa and he said he's building a porch. He's not sure how to get the beams in. He said, I have a whole chap from a Gemara, from a Tosfos. So he said that, a whole pshat from a certain gadol. And with that chachma, he built his porch. He said 3 weeks later, the porch caved in. And he went back to him and said, what happened? He said, I forgot Rabbi Akiva Eiger, such a smart kasha that pshat. No, I forgot that. He said, I forgot his sarachin. I forgot to tell you, he says. So anyway, I'm telling him all these svaras, why I had this guy, he told me he worked once for the Israeli security in the Israeli council. So he told him that he went through all the halachis. He had a Uzi. And he said that the car that has diplomatic plates technically is property of the country. It's like the embassy itself. The inside of the car, it can't be. It's like the property of that country. So he says that a bunch of guys were taking this course. And one of them was a Shtechredi guy. And he said, so what is the din if you shoot out of the car? Told him Sugim Babakam, it's Basa Mikara, Basa Taramana, Azal years ago after. So they told him, get out of this course. He says, you're Lord Gemara, you don't belong in this course. He said. Anyway, so I'm telling him all kinds of svaras that really it's not dimming, it's just the lights are brighter as we're getting to the tunnel. Anyway, we're on this little bridge before the Lincoln Tunnel, and the car conks out. Not my car, his car, his brand new car. So the car conks out, and with no lights, no nothing. And it's a pretty dreary night. So Baruch Hashem, we were on top of a hill, so we roll into a gas station, and we wait for no chaverim there. So we're waiting. I think chaverim would have gotten there faster anyway. Because finally the AA guy comes, and we're on he puts the car on this flatbed, and I'm sitting in the cab together with my friend, and we're going through the toll, and I noticed that the tow truck does not have an easy pass. And he just drives through the toll, and it says, like, easy pass, go. So out of curiosity, I said to him, where's your easy pass? So he tells me the truck doesn't have an easy pass. I said, but the sign said easy pass go. He says, it picks up your easy pass that's on top of the truck, he says. So it says, my anger found then a story. That somebody once came to the Chafetz Chaim and he asked him, what do you do for Parnas? He told him he works for the Tsar, he produces things for the army. And he says, and what happens when your schoir is finished? He says, don't ask. All these commissars, the Tsar's men come and check. And he says, everything is puzzle. Nothing is good enough, and everything is criminal, and everything is this. He says, so how do you survive? He says, you give the guy the right amount of money, and all of a sudden everything becomes good. So the Chafetz Chaim says, bribes, you can't do that, it's not right, why are you doing it? So he says, you have to understand. He says, make the stuff right, you won't have to bribe it. He says, you don't know how the Tsar's army works. He says, you'll always find something with, he says, take the uniform, we'll find, you can invalidate anything. The only way it's valid is if you smear the guy. That's it. There's no other way to live. So the Chafetz Chaim told him, get out of this business. We shouldn't do things that way. But Lamaisa, the Chafetz Chaim turned around to the people around him. He said, I want to tell you something. He said, we're going to come up to Shemayim after 120 years. The Satan could invalidate every single mitzvah we did. Your tefillin, it doesn't have Eis according to this sheet. It's in the wrong place. You didn't put it on. You didn't have the right kavanas. Mitzvah shrichas kavana. You're learning, what learning, when learning. You were thinking about 10,000 things in the middle of learning. Your whole Torah, your whole mitzvahs, everything could be knocked down. They say the famous story that they say at least once a year. This guy came to Volozhin for Pesach, and he ate the first night by the Netziv. He said it was unbelievable Seder. He says the Tzib walked in, his eyes were smiling and shining, and he said it was Zaycha to have a Seder. He said he never felt so good in his life. He says the Adalad Kaisis, he felt such chayra, such freedom. The matzah, the kids saying the kasha, when they got to the Afikomen, he was like flying high, and they did this dance around the table. He said he felt so good to be alive. He felt like a new person. So the next night he ate by the brisker up. So first they davened very, very late, because they waited till very, very late Zman Krishma. Then they had to rush for Chatzos. Then they had the shear of wine, to make sure that there is a revius, a brisker shear of revius. So you have to drink in a brisker shear of Takadei Achilas Pras. I don't know what that is. And then they had these burnt charcoal matzahs. And he says they had to do kazayis, 2 kazaisim. And he said by the time they got to Moitzi Matzah and he gulped down the thing, it's too late, it was almost Chatzos. They had to quickly rush the bench, which they benched very meticulously. And after they were finished, he was like laying on the floor half dead. And the Briskerov got up and said, you probably weren't Yaitza thing tonight. He says that was the 2-star. The story is not true because that was the Beis Halevi in the times of Netzivs. That wasn't even the whole thing. But the idea is that you can really take any mitzvah and you can say it's not a mitzvah. So what do we have to do? They said to the Chafetz Chaim. They said we have to bribe God. That the only way to get our mitzvahs through is to bribe HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, how do you bribe HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You bribe HaKadosh Baruch Hu with chesed. The more tzedakah you give, the more favors you do to people. You get up there, they begin to question the mitzvah. The Rebbeinu Shem says, no. He wrote out a check for someone, Yosim, by a wedding or whatever the case may be, a chassan, a yislayma, this or that. Presto. He's in. He is in. Everybody comes in. There's no question. Your chesed goes forever. Your mitzvahs count in a way that's impossible. So the emes is, the Chafetz Chaim quotes the pasuk, Ashrei Maskel El Dol, V'yoim Ro Yimalteyu Hashem. Ashrei Maskel. Fortunate is the person who has seichel El Dol. When a poor person comes your way, because V'yoim Ro, on that bitter day before Gehenim, Yimalteyu Hashem. God will save you. Kadosh Baruch Hu will rescue you. I remember I was must have been 16 or 17 years old. And we came in, there was a guy, he used to live somewhere between Washington Heights and the surrounding neighborhoods. And he lived in this tenement, and his door was wide open, and everyone used to come in and schmooze. He was a very interesting person. And he had dogs and cats, and he had he used to fear a big tish, Shabbos. He was one of those interesting people. And with guys from Yeshiva, we used to go visit him from time to time. We would talk and schmooze. So it's a Thursday night. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Used to have Leil Shishi, used to be up late. And this guy comes over to me. He says, let's go visit him. So it's a pouring, raining night, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's not the best of neighborhoods. So it was being Bacharim. We said, sure, let's go. And our mode of transportation was, we had, anyone remember the Gremlin, car called the Gremlin? Shouldn't reveal your age. That's only one nodding head. Yes, there used to be a company called AMC, Anyway, so we had this white Gremlin. It was a stick shift. That's when I had the stick. And basically, the only way you got it started was, I'm serious, the only way to get it started was you pushed it. You had to, a few Bachrim had to push it and run, and then then it started. This was a Geschmacker car, and we were like 4 of us in this car without a red cent to our name, and we're on the FDR drive, and it is raining cats and dogs, and it's by now 3:30 in the morning, and we forgot that it usually conked out when it rained. The points, the thing, and it, true to its reputation, it conked out. We were in the middle lane, no flashers, no electricity, no nothing, no phone. There weren't even phones yet created. And we're standing there really saying Tillim. And I got something, we tried to open the door and this car would swish by and we see cars like zooming up last minute, swishing away. And finally this tow truck pulls up behind us and we're waiting and he gets over, starts screaming at us, yelling at us. I don't know what his problem was. At least this guy was a nice guy. And he wants $10 to take us to a mechanic. So, a bunch of Bachrim. No one has a red cent to the name. He's leaving us there. You can't leave us here, it's dangerous, it's this, that. He is using such not such nice adjectives. Finally, one guy finds $10 in his pocket. So, duck of money. He starts clearing it. Use it or not. Grab the $10. We asked him a favor. If he can give us back a quarter change so we can make one phone call. And then, no way. No, he's leaving us. That's it. So he says he's taking us to a mechanic. So we thought he was going to pull in front of us and lift us and take us. No. He pulls behind us and pushes us. Not in a very delicate fashion. I still remember. Boom. And he couldn't see. And there's no power steering because the engine is off. Kal v'chomer in a car that didn't have power steering when the engine was on. So when it was off, for sure it didn't. And I remember, there's no wipers, no nothing. We rolled down the ramp, okay? We rolled down the ramp. He literally pushes us down the ramp. And he doesn't even come down the ramp with us. He backs up and takes off on the highway. And he leaves us to our own vices rolling down the ramp without power brakes. And we come to a stop in a place, there is not one inhabited building in the entire area. And we don't have a red cent to our name, and it's 3:30 in the morning, and it's pouring. And what should I do? What was the time to say? And this fellow comes over, and we thought, this is it, it's all over now. He says, what's your problem? And I'll never forget, he opens up the hood, pops the hood, and he tinkers with the gun. He really tried to help. Not only did he try to help, he even waved off some of the curious onlookers there, whatever they were intended to do. And finally he shrugs his shoulders. He says, he diagnosed it correctly. He said that the points are wet, that it's not that good for you. So I remember we walked away, we thanked him, and I remember asking him if he, just great to be in a neighborhood like that and go schnorring for a quarter. I can't tell you how it feels like. But I said, maybe you can give us a quarter to make a call. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I don't have. I'm almost sure I heard change dingling in his pocket. And that could have been keys. And I remember saying to myself, now here you have a fellow who's, took the time to try to help us, but the idea of taking out a quarter and helping us, I'm not saying that people don't take out quarters to help people in any section. But I'm just saying that, we were talking amongst ourselves. Well, finally, we found one of those phones. It must have been one of those emergency phones or something. They used to have them. They have them now, like the red phones that call it cellular, but you had them here and there. There was nothing to dial with. It was just a clicker. So one of the Bachrim picks it up, he clicks, until the operator gets on and says, can you please connect us with this and this? She says, why can't you dial yourself? He says, I don't have fingers. Bachrim can't talk straight. Anyway, they connected us and somebody came to pick us up. But we were coming back and we were saying, would you take a quarter and just throw it into the sewer? If you're not trained, if there's no chinuch in the Indian of what tzedakah is, that this is the money that lasts forever, so why should you? Why should you take a quarter out of a pocket again? Again, I'm not suggesting that people all over wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you look through a Purim, you have to appreciate the concept, the idea that people without cheshbonis, just giving out huge checks and money, that's it, it's Purim, no questions asked. Because this is an investment for a future, that this represents a different kind of life. Now the lashon of the pasuk is, Ashrei Maskil Eldol. See, the Rebbeinu Shem takes us Eldol to the poor person and says, you see this guy? Yeah, I don't have time for him now. And the Rebbeinu Shem says, but b'yoyim ro'ayim al teyu Hashem. Now, I haven't said this story in a while, so I'll take the liberty of saying it, I think. I was marrying off one of my kids. I remember it was a Friday, short Friday, pandemonium in the house. Every 2 seconds, another neighbor, another tante coming to bring a cake and back and forth and the clothes and this and the Shabbos of the Ofruf. And all of the kids' clothes. Now, if you know what it's like buying clothes for an Ofruf, it's like 6 sisters and 4 aunts and 10 grandmothers come, and it has to go through a system how you buy a dress. You can't just buy a dress for a kid. There's a whole mahalach. It has to go through the committee. It has to be passed by the committee. It has to be sponsored in Congress. It has to be voted on. It has to be ratified by both the Congress and the Senate. It could be vetoed by the President or the Shvuger, and the Supreme Court has to rule it constitutional, something like that. You can't just buy a dress for a kid. So finally, till all the dresses were bought and everything has to match and everything is like it's done. Finally, shoot. And it's in the cleaners for some, or the tailor for some, I don't remember, for some last thing. And we're waiting, and everyone said, "Mama, gotta pick up the cleaners of what they clothes. Gotta pick up the cleaners of what they clothes. Gotta pick up the cleaners of what they clothes." Right. And suddenly it's 3 o'clock, and someone says, "By the way, did you pick up the clothes?" And then there's this mad dash to the cleaners, and they find the gates down. I want to tell you there was pandemonium in this house. We tried to get a hold of the cleaners guy. He said he's on his way. We got a hold of him when he's on his way to Muncie. He's over to George Washington Bridge, and there's an hour left to Shabbos. No, he is not turning around and coming back to Borough Park to open up the store. And all of a sudden, there was, your fault, my fault, and you know what it means when you're sitting on a tsunami that's about to break or a volcano? They didn't know how to describe what was going to happen the next moment. I said, Rabbi Shalom, do something over here, because this is a major crisis. And in walks Yankel. Who's Yankel? Yankel, it's not his real name, but just using his name. Yankel was a guest. He used to come for Shabbos in that time period. And a thin little guy, but he came and he would talk and he would ask for food and schmooze. And at that point he was coming like every Shabbos. And every once in a while he would pop in and say he's hungry. And all of a sudden the door opens up and in walks Yankel. I'm hungry. I wanted to tell Yankel, now Yankel, no. Out of every possible minute for you to come marching in, and he's very, I'm hungry. You can't just give him a banana. It has to be a tuna fish sandwich, and everything has to be cut in a certain way, the celery and the mayonnaise. I say, Yankel, not now, Yankel. Not now, get out, scram, Yankel. Not now, you're walking into an explosion. Yankel, leave. And he comes in, and he says, I'm hungry. And as I was about to show him the exit sign, or at least bang an exit sign into the door, so sometimes the Eishes Chayil of the house has Bina Yisera, an extra understanding. She says, stop! Yankel's hungry. You heard Yankel's hungry! And boom. And then everyone have to run to the kitchen. We have to make him a tuna fish sandwich. No, more mayonnaise, less mayonnaise. No tomatoes, just cucumbers. All right. And finally after he eats, I'm tired. And he plops down on the couch right there and then. And everyone starts screaming, Yankel's sleeping. Tiptoe around Yankel, he's sleeping. Call this cousin, call that cousin. What should I tell you? Nobody went to the Ofruf in their pajamas. Everyone managed to survive. And I look back at it and I say, Yankel, he saved the day. The Rebbeinu Shalom sends us these things to save the day. So I want to quote a little bit from the Chavetz Chaim Sefer Ahavas Chesed, Perik Shmini. He says a person is obligated to do Chesed begufay ubemamonay, with his body and with his money. And first the Chavetz Chaim explains gufay. We won't get to mamonay tonight. But with your body, how do you do chesed with your body? So there's Maisa Dibra Machshav. Maisa is Tircha, says the Chavetz Chaim. Whenever it is uncomfortable for you to help someone and you help someone, you score big points in Shemayim. That's a big bribe. There's Machshav. What's Machshav? So the Chavetz Chaim says an interesting thing. And when we're in a pickle, we sit down and we try to figure things out. Okay, how can I get out of this maze? When was the last time you sat down, says the Chavetz Chaim, and you totally concentrated and focused on thinking about a friend of yours? How do I get him out of trouble? What can I do for him? How can I find him a shidduch? How can I get him a job? That's chesed b'machshava. When it comes to chesed b'dibur, so of course the Chavetz Chaim is the dibur, kedushas hadibur. So the Chavetz Chaim gives several options. Number one, the Chavetz Chaim says, learn with the guy. Sit down with him and learn with him. He says the greatest madrega of Torah is when you learn with someone else. Rabbi Kiva says, Zeklal Gadol b'Torah v'yahaftal riyacha kamoicha. Zeklal Gadol b'Torah. The greatest limit of Torah is, can you learn with me a half hour? Sure. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Pia pascha b'chachma v'sayres chesed al l'shayna. Says the Chavetz Chaim, there is Torah which is not Torah of chesed. There's Torah which is a higher level, Torah of chesed. And that's when you learn with someone else. Next. How do you do chesed with your dibur? Chavetz Chaim says number two is, You know so-and-so is angry at so-and-so, and you go over to him and you convince that person not to be angry at so-and-so. Kim zechartani v'yasisino imadi chesed, says Yosef Atzadik. Next level of chesed. A guy is about to be attacked, chiseled, robbed from, and you go over, even if you have to be a little untruthful. You say, what are you robbing from? He doesn't have a red cent to his name. Or you say, don't start up with him. Oh, he has a cousin. Oh, boy, that cousin. No, stay away. That's a tremendous chesed. Where do we learn that from? What did Avram say to Sarah? He uses the word chesed. Number 4, you go over, Reuven goes over to Shimon and says, can you help Levi? That's like the ultimate opposite of Lashon Hara. Number 5, Eitzah Haigenes. Give a guy good advice. And I've said this story many times. Somebody once came to Rav Shlomo Zalman. He was a bacher, was having a hard time getting married. He's a top-notch bacher. What was his problem? He was a ben yachid, and he had a mother that was still alive, and he wanted a wife that's going to agree for her shviger to move in for the day after Sheva Brachos. And suffice to say that there was a hard thing to find. So he went to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Rav Shlomo Zalman said, you're right, and don't you give in until you get such a girl. And all the Shalom Bayis experts and the psychologists and the psychiatrists and the social workers and the CWWs and the MBAs and everyone came running and said, Rav Shlomo Zalman, you don't get it. It won't work. You don't get married till you find such a girl. Well, it took a few years. He found such a girl. He came in to say, Mazel Tov, he's a chassan. And Rav Shlomo Zalman said to him, very good. And now you find an apartment for your mother to stay. She cannot stay in your house. So he said to Rav Shlomo Zalman, so why did you make me wait then? He said, because if you would have had to have given in and taken a girl that wasn't masking to take your mother, you would have had a grudge against her from day one. And that would have affected your Shalom Bayis. He said, I need it for you. I need it for you. Okay? I need it for you. A girl that was masking to take your mother in. And you should understand it's not going to work. Now what's the greatness here? Here Rav Shlomo Zalman, what did he do? What did Rav Shlomo Zalman do? He was giving advice, and all the world's king's horses and the king's men said, this old rabbi lost it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And even accused him of saying, yeah, he's such a Malgaiva, he's a bad Torah, right? Yeah, he could do whatever he wants. No one understood his greatness. He was willing to give an eitzah even though he looked bad. Mara tells us that Eliyahu Navi was in the marketplace. Thousands of people going by, the downtown number 3 train, rush hour. He meets Rav Breiker. Rav Breiker meets Eliyahu. He says, who's going into Olam Haba? That guy over there. Rav Breiker runs over to him. It doesn't look like anything special. He says to him, why are you going straight to Olam Haba? Nothing. Come on. 2 people. Finally they say, well, we meet a guy. We hang around him until he laughs. That's why they go straight into Olam Haba. It says in Rasha, when you're Bitzar, Hashem is Bitzar. Klani Mirashi. You make someone happy, you're making Hashem happy. So that's why you go into Olam Haba. Says the Ber Moshe, you don't understand. All the brachos and yeshuos in the world only come to a person when he's besimcha. There is no greater pain to Hashem when he says, I can answer all of your tefillos. The yeshuos are all there, but I can't give it to you because you're depressed. You make a person happy even for a minute. That gives God an opportunity to put everything in. Number 6, says the Chavetz Chaim, in terms of chesed b'dibur, is when was the last time you really, really daven for someone else? Even if the guy doesn't know about it. You really, really daven. Ram Avinu daven for Sedai. The Brisker Rav once said that if somebody's not well, and you let out the word that he's getting better when he's not really getting better, you have a din of a roidev, because people are going to stop davening. It shows you how real he considered davening. The bottom line is, what's the Chavetz Chaim saying? Chavetz Chaim is saying that the Rebbeinu Shem throws chesed into our laps. It usually comes at an annoying time. But if you have seichel, it's ashri maskel el dal. No, Hashem is giving you the yankel in your life when you need him. What do they say? This guy is walking next to the yeshiva, and everyone's really working on themselves. There's vadim, and the guy says, I've been schlepping this back. Hey, you guys, can you help me? And the bachrim say, well, we're working on Lashon Hara. The yeshiva down the road, they're into chesed. We go there, you know what I mean? The chesed is that you have a munah, that's a chesed and a munah go hand in hand, that what comes your way is what God wants you to have. Chavetz Chaim brings Eliyahu Navi was walking with Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and they passed a smelly butcher store. I mean, mamish 3 blocks down. Whoa, that stuff was like you had to have derech eretz for that meat. It was been around there a long time. times of his Elter's age, and people are online, they're fighting, and the price of that smelly meat is like, I don't know how much. They pass by another store, fresh, clean, most geschmack steaks, no one's there, cheap, no one's buying. So Rabbi Shua ben Levi asked Eliyahu, what's this? He said, that's what it's going to look like in Shemayim after 120 years. That your aveiros, that you're a little bit of taiva that you lose in a second and you pay a price for forever after. Everyone's fighting and fighting for it. And the mitzvahs and the chesed that is there, and you get so much mileage out of it, there's no one to take it. You know, it's getting warmer outside. So every year we touch on this a little bit. There are different nisyonos that come with the warm weather. The nisyon is designed for you and it's designed for me. What we see on the street or don't see on the street, whatever our nisyonos are when Pesach comes, is the Ashrei Maskal El Dal. God has designed it for us because what we need in our life is based on the nisyonos that we have. Famous Gemara Masechtas Menachos, we've mentioned many times, Daf Mem Dalid. There was this person who was Zahir b'mitzvah tzitzis, very careful with the mitzvah tzitzis. He found there was a prostitute someplace that charged a tremendous amount of 400 zehuvim. He sold whatever he can. He came over to the Gemara describes. He climbed up to water, dazzling gold and silver. And just as he's about to fall into the shaltachtas and commit the worst, his tzitzis smack him across the face. So Shiloh was miraculously, or it was just by accident, which is nothing is really an accident. And he freezes and he jumps off. He's going away. And he does not get a refund. And she follows him. She says, "Ma mumri isabi, what blemish did you see in me? No one ever was able to do that." And he said to her, "Avoida, I swear, I never saw someone as pretty as you in the world. But do you see these tzitzis? They just slapped me in the face." And in the Parasha of tzitzis, it says, "Ani Hashem Elokechem" twice. And one is to remind us of the einish, and the other is to remind us of the reward. And there are two Eidim over here. It says there are two groups of Eidim, 4 Eidim. So she said to him, "What's your name? What's the name of your Rebbe? And where do you learn?" Now, I don't know. Most people really would not give their real name under these circumstances, but he did. And not only did he wrote it with his own handwriting. I mean, how foolish can you get? You know what I mean? And he gave her the paper. And she turned around and she followed him, and he was a Talmud of Rabbi nonetheless. Rabbi. And Rabbi said to her, "What do you want?" So she said she wants to be Megaya herself. She had sold off all her assets, the Gemara says. And he says, "Biti Shema, maybe you put your eyes on one of my Talmidim." It doesn't work that way. So she showed him the Ksav, that he gave her the address. So what? So Rashi explains, the way the Mashal explains Rashi, the Chavaz Das explains Rashi, that she said that I wasn't impressed by him per se. It's the reason I'm here, the reason I sold everything and I came running here for a career change and I want to become a Giyaris is because I asked him, what Beis Medrash did he learn in that he had the power to turn around at that point? I can't believe it. So he was Megaya her, and he said, Zeh matan schara, and the Gemara says, if this was his schara b'yolam hazeh, can you imagine what it was l'yolam haba? Now, note, it says, have a zahir b'mitzvah tzitzis, before the whole thing started. That what saved him was the fact he was meticulous about the mitzvah tzitzis. Brought down in the Svarim, that in the course of our lives, we may have a cheshik to a particular mitzvah saseh. And if you do so, hang on to it, because it means that mitzvah is going to save your life. Now, what does it mean? There were 4 groups of Eidim. The 2 tzitzis. One group, there's 2 Eidim, we need 4 groups of Eidim. So the Chavaz Das explains because what gave him the power to step away at such a moment of passion is because he understood that there were two dinim over here in every Aveira. One is that the Aveira is not Kedai. We've mentioned this before from Shlam Kazavilla, from others, that a person is born in this world, there's a certain amount of taiva, a certain amount of temptation that has been allotted to you. If you use it up, bi'isr, you don't gain, other than you'll have to pay the price for it. And if you hold yourself back, you'll get it anyway and get it beheter. But the only thing is it's on God's timetable. You have to wait. And the other is the unbelievable reward and schar. The Stryper talks about this so many times. You have a taiva to look at things, you turn away. It's not pshat, you just stepped away from Gehenna. Do you know the unbelievable reward that you get? You know what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this to you to save your life? What the schar that you have, the power that you have, you become untouchable. No ayin hara could be shoyled on you, like it says by Yosef HaTzadik. That's why there were 2 separate groups of Eden, 2 separate things. Now this that the Gemara says, Rav Chia said to her, Zachar, go take your Mekach. He was yours all along. What does that mean? How could Rav Chia say that? She was a Zaina. And the answer is, they state in the Svarim, and you have to understand this, it's a thief of art. Our taivas We're not bad because we have taiva. Taiva is the reason we're down here on this world. It's what we do with the taiva. The taiva that a person has, regardless of how bad it is made for him to grow. Because when he breaks that taiva, he achieves a level that nobody else in the world could achieve. Because his taiva and his nisyonis is based on who he is. Taivas are tailor-made. And that's why a person shouldn't look down at himself because he has nisyonis. Adarabah, the nisyonis are his opportunities. Remember once learning Gemara, many years ago, I was learning the same Gemara now, so I remembered. Learning Gemara in Bava Kama. The Gemara, I think we mentioned this last week, I don't remember. The Gemara talks about cows walking down the street, and he wags his tail and knocks something over, do you have to pay for it or not? So the Gemara says, what is he supposed to do, hold the tail? So the Gemara says, no, kishkush yisera. It was an extra whack he did with the tail. Some tails, guess when horses really get angry, they really smack with their tails. Which is probably one of the reasons human beings don't have tails. Imagine what we would do with it. Okay. Mar Brachas Lamoshinim, the 19th Schachter, we won't get into that. So remember a kid getting up, he's learning Gemara about tails, when animals smack, it's not for him. The Gemara, it's the Ratzon Hashem, doesn't make sense what you're learning about, number one. So number two, because Baruch Hu put these words in my mouth, I think it has some relevance to emes. It says, I want to tell you something. What's the Gemara saying? We're not going to hold you responsible for things that aren't in your control. I have a right to walk with a cow down the street, in places where you walk with cows down the streets, or whatever the animal is. It whacks with its tail, it's not my responsibility. It's in the Rishus Harabah. We're all going to hide. We're going to say to Hashem, what do you want from me? I was exposed to online this and that, my phone, my environment. God, you have to have Rahmanas on me. Hashem says, I know. But this kishkish yisera, there's an extra whack with the tail. The Rabbi is going to show us you went a little bit stronger with that tail, even given what you were exposed to. And that's what you have to pay for. And that's what we got to be careful about. That kishkish yisera, that extra. This is who I am, accept who you are. Pick up the pieces and run with it. Pick up the ball and go wherever you are. Run with it. So we said, we mentioned on Purim over here. He's in one of these co-ops they built in Muncie, very, very thin walls. The guy was complaining. So he told me it really helped with Shalom Bayis. I said, how did it help you Shalom Bayis? You have such thin walls. He says, he hears what's going on in the other guy's house. He says, Mishkafel. By me, it ain't so bad. He said, not so bad. He says, how thin are his walls? He says, I don't know if it was real or not. He says he banged in a picture. In a few minutes, the guy came knocking on his door. He said, do you mind if I use the nail to hang my hat on from the other side? So, okay. Everyone has nisyonis. The idea is, who am I? This is who I am. These are my nisyonis. These are my taivas. These are my failures in life. I pick it up from me. I am who I am right now. On Purim, a bunch of people come to you, after a while, people come to your house and try to keep up with it. So I had this whole thing with my kids. I told them, a little boy comes, give a quarter, and an older boy $1, a man comes. So, my kid comes running, an 8-year-old comes running up. I say, who's there? He says, Bucher. Groise Bucher? Zay Groise Bucher. Very big Bucher. Yeah, okay. So fine, so I give him $2. He comes back. He goes, I said, how big was the Bucher? He says, like me. I said, yeah, okay, I'm big, right? He's not an 8-year-old, got his $2. Okay, Alice is Basher. I want to tell you, I spoke to a friend of mine who lives in Ashdod over the weekend. And, they had a Shabbos Bavarfen, and a very, very tough Shabbos. There were missiles flying down. So he was saying that he lives in an old house. Old. It was built in the 90s. But at that time, they weren't anticipating this. And there's no shelters. And he says he lives on the 4th floor. His wife has a newborn baby. There's sirens 3 o'clock in the morning. They go running down. And so I said, why didn't you move? Last time this happened, you went to Bnei Brak, to your mother-in-law. Now, I know there are people that would rather have missiles flying on their head than going to their mother-in-law. But this guy's situation, he says, as good as it was, you want to be home. You want to be home. And at one point you say, you know what? No, there's no safe place. You want to be home. Look what he's saying. There's a point in our lives, this is who I am. I may have missiles falling on my head. I am who I am, and this is it. It's my Yetzer Tov, my Yetzer Hara. I am going to deal with it. He told me a story that there was a family that was together on a full bus on the way from Bnei Brak to Ashdod, Matzah Shabbos, and the sirens go on. And they're in an area where they're in a wide open field. And according to the rules of the home front, you're in a bus with a siren, everyone has to get off the bus and lie on the floor. There's no place to run to. You just imagine what it was like. Mothers, kids, getting off that bus. And it's a dark field. There's not a light around. Fine, you hear the thud. You realize, Baruch Hashem, it's not near you. Or he says they got back onto the bus. There's blood-curdling cry for one of the mothers. 2 of her kids are missing. And the whole bus gets off, and one guy had a flashlight, and they're calling, and they're searching through the thing. And they found the 2 kids. They said, if you know what it was like, those couple of moments. But he said, I got to tell you that since then, those families that are on the bus are like so close to each other. Because this unbelievable search for those missing kids. And you know, the appreciation you had for your child afterwards. The 2 minutes before this whole story was happening, you were saying to your child, stop crying! You know, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, you're so happy he's there. So these experiences in life, they change us. We shouldn't, it's easy for us to talk like they're on the other side of the ocean. We don't know what's going on over here. But there's a certain, the Nisyonos in life create us. It binds us as a people. If you have seichel to look around and understand who to connect to under such situations. You know, the Vision Rebbe, this is an amazing person. He used to say, he was very into learning Chayvus Levavos. He once said, you can't be a Vision Tzachasa without learning Chayvus Levavos. And particularly the Shara B'tachim. So the Chayvus Levavos says like this, just to quote L'chvoidai. He says, a newborn baby knows one thing, the nipple. He doesn't even know the mother. Just knows the nipple. He says, as he gets older, he recognizes his mother. As he gets even older, he says, oh, there's a father here. As he gets even older, he says, oh, there's money. As he gets even older, there's tithers. And then he comes to a cross point. He either loses it there, or he goes further and says, there's a HaKadosh Baruch Hu that created me. And that's the point in your life between Taiva and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you got to keep going, that you can't stop. I remember the Vision Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, was here for a Shabbos. I don't know, it must have been 16, 17. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was, because some of you know math. But it goes back a couple of decades. And he was in the public school on 16th and like 56th. And I remember there was like this batting cage there in the corner of the hall. And everyone was desperate to see, and I climbed up on top of the cage. But it was crooked on top, I guess, to prevent people from... And I kept slipping and falling and slipping. It's like a 3-hour tish. And I'm like, the holes weren't big enough for me to get my foot inside. And at one point I just slipped. And I zets down, I remember, and I landed on this man who happened to be the richest guy in my shul, and I totally demolished, decimated his hat, like crushed. And he gave me this look, and I was saying, get me out of here. It's not worth it. And I remember the Rebbe started singing then. You know, there's a Vision Sinig, and I'm not going to sing it because Purim is over, but it goes something like, you know, V'sigala, V'sayrula, Malchusa Yoleim. You know, Rabbi Hashem, reveal yourself, there's man carved. I just remember his surah. I just remember like holding on by a pinky to this batting cage. I don't know for how long. I was enchanted by the moment. Like, as if like, Rabbi Shalom, you know, I've gone through the war, I've rebuilt, reveal yourself. Everything was worth it for that moment. You know, this Shabbos is Shabbos Para. It's Mitayr Tmeim and it's Mitam Mitayim. So some Sefer says a fascinating thought. He says the Yidden were not worthy of a Chet HaEgel. Why did they sin in the Chet HaEgel? L'Hayris Tshuva L'Rabim. They sinned to get us to do Tshuva. So it's Mitam Tmeim and Mitam Mitayim. In other words, and the Rav Dessler explains this as well, we don't start with a clean slate. Okay? We start in a matziv, as we grow up in a matziv of Taiva and Nisyonos. And the Rebbe Hashem says, get your way out of it. I once read this story of a guy who was a paratrooper in World War II, and he was dropped behind enemy lines. And he explains how they were trained to be paratroopers, and he was so ready to go that he was on the plane, and the plane came under fire, machine gun fire. And one of the guys was hit, and he fell to the floor. And they had to disconnect him from the parachute. And he remembers thinking, oh, never, he won't be able to get the jump. Like, I think he was just shot. But that's how we were so... And he said, I was so sure, because we had these intelligence briefings, and we were told when we land, we were given a map, and we had the simulated areas, because it was a high sensitive, it was a special forces mission. And that when he lands there, he's going to know exactly where he is. He had it all planned out. He said he landed in a swamp. There wasn't supposed to be a swamp there. He started running, he crashed into a gate. There wasn't supposed to be a gate there. He turned around, there was supposed to be a thorn bush. There was no thorn bush to hide in. He says everything on that intelligence report was wrong. And he was next to a friend of his, another guy that landed almost near him or on top of him. And they started cursing this like intelligence report. And one of them said, you know what? If we curse, we're dead. If we accept the fact this is where we are, we've got to work our way out of it, we can survive. And he said that thought took on him his whole life. If, you want to say, I am so messed up in my life, I'll never get out of here, you're finished. You want to blame him, you're finished. You don't have a chance to survive. He said he later came home and found out that his mother was saying Tehillim in those moments. That it was lamish like when he backtracked on the days. So, we're coming up to the last days of Adar. There's a shtickle extension this year. They don't have a Chodesh extra month, but Parashas Parah is late. You'll notice some calendars even got it wrong this year. Because this coming year, look, Because almost always, Parshas Parah comes right after Purim. But this year, Parshas Chodesh is Shabbos Mevarchim Nisan. But this year, last Shabbos was nothing. And if they read Parshas Parah in your base medrash, suggest they get a new calendar. And this coming week is Parshas Parah, and the next week is Chodesh. Why? Because if Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos, so Parshas Chodesh is on Rosh Chodesh. So really, there's an extension up until Parshas Parah. You know what Parshas Parah is? Parshas Parah is the Tahara. Parshas Parah, the Parah was burnt in the fire, and there was the Mayim Chaim. It's a combination of Eisha and the Siyanais, and a belief in what our koyach of davening is. Willing to deal with the reality. You got to pass on to level 2. Anyone here remember playing Kogelach? Kids still play it, right? Before the good old days, I say palm piles, those are good old days. Before, I had my kids, like, they're so into this Kogelach. My 8-year-old, the same guy, that's the big bucher, he's like a whiz, swish, swish, swish. He always wants me to play with him, and I feel like a fool, because I go onesies, and we have to get the Kogelach out of the chandelier, and this guy is like whizzing away. Second chelik, third chelik, fourth chelik. So like he's up to like the 12th chelik or something. So my older kids are like chepping him. They're going, when you get to the 24th chelik, you know how you have to do it? He says, we blindfold you, and you have to do it with one hand tied behind your back. And he was like, oh great, he can't wait to get there. And I'm saying like, I would run. Like he can't wait to get there. Right? If we only had that attitude. So just to wrap things up, Rabbi Sai. So Moshe Rabbeinu was about to make the kiyar, right? And who brings the donations for the kiyar? The women. And what do they bring? Just the right thing you would imagine the Beis HaMikdash for the water that's Matar the Kohen. They bring their makeup mirrors, right? It's a great thing to bring. And Moshe Rabbeinu says to these ladies, I don't know, this really belongs here to make the kiyar out of this, And the Nechayshus over there. And Rav Anisham says, take a look in Rashi, you know what these mirrors were used for? And when the men in Mitzrayim were giving up, and they said, we're dead, there's no chance, we give up, we're over. And the women looked into the took the mirror and said, look at me and look at you, who has more to lose? And they did their best to encourage them to build doiros and let God worry about it. We got to move on. God says, you take these mirrors. Take them. You know what the Ibn Ezra says? All the things in the Beis HaMikdash have a size. All the things. The Aron had to be exact. The menorah had to be to the trillionth of a millimeter exact. And Moshe Rabbeinu tried, couldn't do it. He had to throw it into fire. It had to be a nest. Everything has to be exact. The kiyar had no size. Could be as big as anything. Why? Why did the kiyar have no size? You know what the Ibn Ezra says? He says because the Rabbi Shalom says every single one of these mirrors got to go in there. Protects you. I want to get my kid into the yeshiva. Class full. Protects you? Okay, sure, no problem. It's full. We reached the limit. Oh, no problem. You write money. They'll tell us book. No, write money, sure. Right protects you. There's no thing is full. The Rabbi Shalom says, by me, that's protects you. When everyone else gives up and it seems like there's nothing to live on and you have the courage to live on, God says every mirror got to get in there. And the mirror, that's the Schachter, right? That brings Shalom, Beinish Liyishtay. That's Yadayim, Reglayim, that's Matayar, everything. But someone is the dumps, you move in. That's the yard of the Rebbe Reb Melech. So the tefillah of the Rebbe Reb Melech is, I was getting late, we'll wrap up in a minute, B'yaz Hashem Yisbarach. Just say the words. I know it's a song, but even before the song, just think about these words. It's kedai to maybe say it. Some sidurim have it tomorrow morning before davening. Rebbe Melech Yatzah. V'satzileinum in kinas ish miriyehu. Save us in being jealous. Shalayala kinas adam alinu. Don't be jealous about the next guy. Like kinaseinu alachayim. The Rabbi, right? Sorry, I don't know that nigga. But, right? Titem b'leveinu shanira kol echad malas chavireinu v'loy chasreinu. Just bunch of love. You know what the Rebbe Melech daven for? Let me see the mila in my friend. Give me the seichel to get out. And I want to show you another piece which is not so famous. He goes on, Mimi Anashenu, those from our people. The Rambam says this tefillah of the Rebbe Melech, they had 36 Talmidim, he sent them all into the woods to make a tefillah, they all came back and said had the same words. He said, if any one of our people, his job is, he has to get, either he's a worker or he has to go asking for food. So you know what they all pleaded every morning before davening? Ten belev nediv amcha. That when he has to ask for food or ask for money or ask for a boss a raise, please Hashem, put it into the eyes of his boss to give it to him b'simcha. So he should be happy. His wife, he should look good in the eyes of his wife. He shouldn't be embarrassed. This is what they daven and cry their hearts out every single day. And they should, right? And by the way, and those that do business, they should be matzliach in their business. I would think it would be the other way around, right? But look what was more important to them. So the Rebbe Melech, famous story, two ladies are coming there, and one lady has real amunah in the Rebbe, her husband does not, but she makes him go, and he's standing there, and everyone's pushing and screaming, and the Rebbe Melech, the bottom line is two kvitlach. And one kvitl is about a person that's sick. The Rebbe Melech said they should do bankers. You know what bankers are? He used to put these like leeches or something on you that took the bad blood out of you. And the other guy was, the pirates were locking him up because he had no money to pay the rent. The two kvitlach got mixed up. So the guy comes out there, he looks at the answer, he goes, this rabbi is off his... She goes, what's the problem? I told him the pirates is throwing me into the dungeon. He says I should put bankers on myself. And she said, if that's what the Rebbe said, that's what we're doing. He says, you're as crazy as that. Boy, he has a chance to finish his sentence. She plops him with bankers. He falls to the floor. Blood is cascading out of him. The pirates comes running because he got the money for the rent. Out of here. Picks him up and is dragging him off, throws him into the dungeon, and she says, no, that's what the Rebbe said, that's what we're doing. 2 seconds later, the pirates comes running, takes him out, and the doctors are healing him, so you have rent-free your whole life. So what happened? You know, the pirate's son was here with his daughter-in-law. She saw him schlepping this guy bleeding into a thing. She says, he's a madman, he's a ruthless tyrant, I don't want anything to do with this shidduch. And all of a sudden, her son said, no, my father's taking him there to be cured. There's a special doctor down there in that hole, and now they're taking him out to be clean. He's taking care of his whole family. And his father said, what? And he gave his father a kick, and his father understood, oh, that's what I'm doing, right. You know, and he got rent-free. There's so many times in our life where it looks like it's all over. If you have the courage to say, I'm going to do what I have to do, then the Rebbe Hashem says, guess what? Room or no room, whether your mitzvah counts or no counts, you paid the right bribe. It is going to come in there and be part of the Beis HaMikdash, whether there's place for it or not.